Hello, hello. Test, test, test. Shit. All right, guys, can you see me? Can you hear me? Throw me something in the chat if you can see me. Hello, hello. Great. All right. What's up, guys? Thank you. Sorry, once again, we had some technical issues. There seems to be either something wrong on my end or something wrong on Roman's end or something always to deal with. But here we are. If for some reason we get disconnected, I'll get it started right up again as quickly as possible. Thank you for your patience. Looking forward to doing this again today. Hope you all are doing well. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Arca and Matthew Flores and Shutstart and Evandro and Matthew Flores again and Raw Rocket and all you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. This is Josh with WA Production again. We are going to go through a bunch of songs today. Going to go for about an hour and do my best to get to as many as possible. And if we don't catch you this time, do it again next week. And I'll do my best to get to you. So let's take a look at the live stream channel. How many we got here? We got like 10 or so right now. So I'm sure more will come in. I'm just going to start with these first ones here. And I'll get started as soon as possible so that we can get to as many as we can. If there are any issues with audio or video or anything during this, just shoot me a message either on YouTube or Discord, and I'll try to figure it out. But anyway, let's get started here. So we've got Matt Ferris, not sure how I'm supposed to pronounce that, but either way, apologize if I'm messing that up. But we've got El Inca here. And again, I'm going to start playing. If you can't hear it or anything, let me know, and I will get it fixed. So let's get started. was really cool, actually. That's awesome. Cool big room house track with some hard style elements and some halftime drop at the end. That's really awesome. Yeah, I mean, really, really well produced. Definitely a powerful track. Could see that banging at a festival or a club or wherever. Couple of quick pointers, I think. So, firstly, I think this will probably get sorted out in the mix with some limiting and everything. But if you notice just visually on the waveform, right here is the first build up, and then the drop is actually quieter. So you want to make sure that the drop is the loudest part of your track. And so, doing some, changes in volumes could help with that, as well as, probably some limiting and everything. But I would, in the build-ups, especially in big room type stuff, you have a lot of elements going on. So that's pretty common to start to see, oh man, my build-up is getting louder than my drop. So you could either push up some elements in the drop, or all of them really, or lower some stuff in the build-up. But you want to make sure that the drop is the heaviest part. Secondly, I do feel that this track's longer than it needs to be. I think I mentioned it last week that in the age of streaming, 4.5 minutes is pretty long for this kind of genre, and you want people to want to come back for more and replay. And so I love the military style drums and really cinematic type stuff, but I feel like this whole part could be about half as long, and same with this part over here. So I mean, if you could trim this down to be like 3.5 minutes or something like that, 3 minutes, I think you have a song that people will want to keep replaying and replaying. And there's a little, I used to do this all the time for sure. And you want to like have this really long, drawn out, awesome build up, but you also got to think about the listener and what they want. And you don't want to lose their attention partway through. So, but yeah, really, really great start to this week. That was a really awesome production there. All right, moving right along. Let's check out Dulip Kuvar's song. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. Kritrim. Nice. That's a really cool synthwavy 80s-esque track. Yeah, I really like it. I think that the variety of in instruments and the general build of the melodic content is cool, especially that like guitar-y, uh, solo guitar kind of lead sound. I really like that and how it progressed throughout. A few things, yeah, I would say, this is obviously a totally different genre to the last one, and it kind of progresses throughout. It's more like it goes from one thing to where at the end it's really progressed all the way through, and it's a different kind of track. But I do feel like maybe you don't need to shorten it necessarily, but maybe a little bit more variety in certain areas. That one synth that repeats kind of the entire time. It might be good to kind of drop that out a little bit sometimes, just for variety or to change it up or something like that. One other tip, I feel like the effects and the processing is really what's going to take this track to the next level. First, you're going for this 80s sound. I feel like it sounds a little bit in the box though. And what I mean by that is that, those 80s-esque sounds are very analog, and this sounds a little sterile. So I don't know if you can route it through something analog, or to add some analog warming effects onto it to just give it a warmer, less digital sound. I think that would be cool. And then secondly, for the drums, I think they need to be bigger and more impactful. They're a little kind of lost in the mix right now. And I think that what would really make it stand out also is to emulate those 80s type tracks with gated reverb. And so if you don't know what that is or don't know how to do it, look it up. It's pretty easy. But that's what that typical 80s snare drum, Phil Collins or whatever kind of sound is. So look that up. I think that would sound really good on your drums, and just make them louder too. And then there is a bit of muddiness, so just work on the mix a little bit and make sure that there aren't too many low, mid elements that are kind of fighting with each other. So overall, though, really cool. I could totally see this in like I don't know, not necessarily Stranger Things, but like some sort of TV show or something where it's appropriate and time appropriate. I think it's really cool. So good work. All right, Arca. Sorry, I didn't realize you were not brand new. You've been around, so looking forward to checking out what you've got here. So thank you. Your idea, 49 seconds. So we'll get a quick snippet. Cool. Yeah, I dig it. Obviously, this is a rough, snippet. But yeah, I like it a lot. I think that you probably already know this, but you just need to add in detail work. More elements, more percussive elements, more effects, more one shots, cool stuff to just kind of keep the listener engaged. You've got that bouncy drop. But I think just like a bunch of toms or something like really cool just to fill all those little emptier spots, especially because it's a little repetitive, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But like you can have a repetitive lead and repetitive progression if you have non-repetitive, exciting, percussive, and one-shot elements that are happening all the time to keep the listener interested. So I think that's what I would add. Obviously, the build-up is a little weak right now. Gotta put more things in there as well as process them correctly. I like the chords. I think that they sound a little preset-y right now, if that's a word. So I mean, I would just focus on maybe layering or adding some additional processing to it. I feel like they could be crunchier or crisper as well. So like even just an EQ on the highs to raise those up, and or some some distortion, saturation, something like that would be cool. And yeah, just all the elements. I mean, I just want it to punch harder. So, some compression and things like that would be helpful. But great start. Definitely would love to hear it when it's finished. Thanks. All right, going to listen to Audio Trackers now, On My Way version 1. All right, that was awesome. Nice work. I really like that. At first I wasn't really sure what to expect, and then I like that it dropped into that really chill, trancey, kind of old school sounding drop. And then also the fact that, after a little while in that first drop, the progression changed. Just surprisingly, it worked really well, but I just wasn't expecting it. I was kind of expecting it to keep replaying the same. But yeah, I really love that. And then the fact that each time it drops in, there's like another new element, and yeah, I really enjoyed that. Very I don't know, early 2000s, not in a bad way, just like it reminds me of kind of those tracks, or maybe not early 2000s, like 2009 or something like that, but not in a way that means it's dated at all, but just like I love that kind of sound. The vocal's really cool. It sounds like that's an original vocal by, you know, a singer you worked with or something. I'm not sure, but that really cool. The stuff I'm going to say is pretty minor, mostly mix related. I would just work on fine tuning a few things. There's not like major mix issues or anything, but you know, there's some areas when you're bringing in new elements and they all have reverb on them. I feel like the reverb gets a little much in certain parts, so especially towards the later parts because you have more and more elements. So maybe tone that down a little bit, just fine tune that a bit. Also, it sounded like you might have done this already. I couldn't really tell, but it might help if you haven't already to sidechain the reverb a bit as well. It kind of gives it a little bit more groove and gets the reverb out of the way of some of the other elements. But yeah, I really like that. One other thing, I feel like maybe in some parts it could be livened up a little bit with a little bit more percussive and drum elements, hi-hats. You have hi-hats and stuff, but like maybe a little bit more in some parts. Just to keep the listener interested. And but yeah, generally really good. Yeah, really great work. So thanks. All right, now we got DJ Evandro de New House. Nice, with his sweet studio set up here. DBND, DBMD. Sorry, Space Fire Extended Mix. All right, let's take a listen. All right, really cool. Ready to go hit a festival right now, but I'm stuck in my house. So nice work. Not a lot of comments in terms of the composition or structure or anything like that. You know, it's well produced. I enjoyed it. I think that most of my comments are going to be mix centric on this one, and that's often harder, especially uh, when you haven't been doing this for 10, 20 years, and maybe you have, but there aren't huge issues or anything. But I would say that some of the parts are muddy. You want to make sure you're EQing and making sure that especially the lows and the low mids are in some parts a little bit muddy. And then I wanted, like, in those big breakdowns, I wanted the big super saws and stuff to really just shine bright, and they sounded a little bit farther back in the mix than I wanted. So that can be like a challenge of balancing the amount of reverb you want, but not having the reverb, overshadow and mute the sound that you want, plus just volume and layering and all of that stuff. To me, it sounded like I don't know if this is SoundCloud doing it or just the master, but it sounded like it was kind of getting affected by compression in a negative way. It feels like maybe this sounded better before you put it on SoundCloud, and then maybe SoundCloud's algorithms and whatever kind of gave it some nasty compression. So just make sure, that could have happened if you like really killed the limiter and had it hitting at like -2 or something, and RMS, and that might trigger SoundCloud to kind of compress it in a bad way. So just make sure that nothing you don't want happening to the final mix is happening. So but yeah, I mean, generally really good. I think that the vocals maybe sounded a little too chorusy and wide. I mean, I know you want them to be wide, but you also want to hear it like in front of you, and so maybe tone that down a bit, make it a little narrower. You can add chorus effects or whatever, but I would try to see how this sounds in mono. You want to do a mono check. If you're using Ableton, you can just throw a utility on there and just throw it into mono real quick, and just see if that makes your vocal and other sounds kind of disappear or go away or anything, because that's a good way. If it sounds good in mono, it's going to sound good stereo. So sometimes when you put these widening effects on them, they have negative repercussions in mono, and that can kind of mess up the phasing issues and all stuff like that. So anyway, good job. I would definitely just go back and toy with the mix a little bit and make sure it's sounding the way you want. So great job though. Okay, gonna go over to here. Plasmator. That's a cool name. System Failure. Let's check this out. Drum and bass. Ooh, I'm excited. All right, nice work. That was really cool. Like I said, I'm a big fan of drum and bass, so nice job. Yeah, a few things mostly mix related. The some of the drums, I don't know if that's a loop or if you produce that yourself, but they sound a little harsh. So I would work on a little EQing there. You want to be able to really blast that as loud as possible without your ears hurting. So just make sure with that. I would say the builds are a little lacking. I think the transitions overall are a bit abrupt. So you want to prepare the listener to be ready for those drops and for the drops to end, for that matter. So adding in transition effects, and I would filter out some of the low end as you're approaching the drops. Take a look at some of your favorite drum and bass tracks and see what they did. And you can kind of emulate their style in terms of the effects and the transitions. Also with I love choir and strings and orchestral sounds and stuff like that, and I think they work really well on the track. But I think that they need a little bit of work. I think that there's a bit too much release on them, and they're sort of overlapping when you go from one note to the other, and I get that it's a cool sound, but it starts to just, I don't know, it sounds a little muddy and less tight. You want it to sound a bit tighter. And with the mix, as far as that goes, I feel like they're kind of low in the mix and kind of dark, and I wanted them to sound a little stronger. So maybe remove a little bit of the reverb, remove a little bit, shorten the release time, and get them a little bit more tight, and I think that'll sound better. But yeah, overall, great work. Really enjoyed that, and looking forward to hearing more from you. Okay, shut start, closer. While you think it over. Shut start remix. Got it. All right, let's check it out.
It's not the wind throwing you off your feet again. Could it be that the odds of your confidence wavering? You can blame it on fate, good luck goes to lunar phase. In the end, what you make doesn't care what you say it is. The future is calling. You don't have to feel brave. Your fortune is constant, but your side tends to sway. The future is calling. You don't have to feel brave. Your fortune is constant, but your side tends to sway. The future is calling while you think it over. Choose to stop. Future is calling.
nice work. Obviously have not listened to the original, so I don't know how to compare it really, but um, those drops were really cool. I really liked the variation in the second one. Wasn't expecting that with the I don't know if you used an LFO or if you manually did the wobbles there and stuff, but really cool. I would say the drops, to me, it sounds like, and I do this and I've done this many times, but it sounds like, you got really stoked on the drops and then made the rest after just because you kind of had to. So, I mean, the drops, I think they still need a little bit of work, but they're a lot better than the rest of the track, in my opinion. I think that on the drops, I would add more detail work. Listen to some of your favorite songs in this genre, and add some cool risers and down filters and little. This future bassy kind of genre has typically a lot going on in those fills, and so I think that about halfway through the drops, you start to lose a little bit of interest because it sort of sounds repetitive. And I'm not saying you have to change the melody or anything like that, but throwing in more of those elements, that it's that detail work that makes the track. And that's the most boring part of the song, unfortunately, of the production of a song. It's throwing in all those little details, but that's what's going to keep the listener interested. And that's what makes a song from going from decent to awesome. And then, yeah, in the verses, I'm not sure if maybe the progression is a little off key or something like that, but just be really certain that the vocal matches the chord progression perfectly, because if there's any sort of key issues, it's going to turn people off. And so I really, I think that part could use a lot of work, with detail work, with mixing. It sounded a little muddy. And I know we kind of skipped through it, but that second verse, I think it sounded pretty much the same as the first verse. So you're going to want to make the second verse a little bit more engaging, add some more elements and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely would if you can go back and work on this a bit more. But sometimes that's not what you want to hear. but I really did like the drops. I thought those were really cool. But you might have to change the chord progression or something. I'm not sure. Just double check. I know that can be a challenge with remixes because you come up with a drop that sounds really dope, but then maybe the progression doesn't really fit the vocal. So anyway, good work. And looking forward to hearing more from you. All right. Indian KSH Rasika. I'm probably saying all of that wrong, but let's check it out. All right, nice work. Very cool. Very nice integration of those Indian sounds with that big room housey sound. Very Kashmir esque. I don't know. Maybe that's what this KSH stands for. I'm not sure, but really cool. I think that's a compliment because Kashmir is really dope. Mix is really the biggest thing here. Those individual elements need to be processed in a way to where they all fit together nicely. The string, whatever, guitar, sitar kind of element there. There's a lot of unnecessary low end. I would high pass the crap out of that, and not too high, but there's not a need for those elements, for those the low end frequency stuff. I would also, with the vocal, really love it. The only thing is that for the short parts that you really use the most often, great. It works really well. When she starts in that first drop to do the longer phrase of her vocal, it sounds like it's off key. So I would only use those elements that are perfectly in key with your song. Obviously, I'm guessing it's a sample or something from another song or something like that. I think that the song would do well if you only use those few pieces that your song is really built around and not try to force having the entire verse or line in there. Mostly mixing stuff. I feel like a lot of the sounds sounded a bit disjointed. Like there might be like a vocal shout right before the drop that's like too quiet or like not enough reverb on it or whatever, so it sounds like it's from like a different song. So you just want to make sure you're processing everything so that they sound like they're in the same room and they all have their space. And some things could be panned a little bit more, made a bit wider. Really it's mostly processing that I'm talking about here. And then other than the vocal thing, but just making sure that it all sounds like it's from the same world and the same room and it's all coming from the same place. I think that'll do you a lot of good. So good work. I really, like I said, I mean, it sounds like something that Kashmir would work on, and just fine tune it a bit. Great job. Okay, unnamed ID from, oh my gosh, who was this? Who sent me the Dropbox link? Oh God. Okay. I'll find it in a second. I'll announce it, but let's just start it. Can I start it? Why isn't it? There's no play button. Oh, okay. There we go. still don't know who sent me this. Maybe they put their name in the chat. I have no idea. But anyway, yeah, it's cool. I would say that there's kind of some decisions that need to be made here. The drums sound like they're from a big room track, but the rest of the song kind of sounds more chill. So I feel like make a decision as to whether you want to, I would either replace the drums with, I don't know, more chill, kind of Major Lazer-y type sounding drums, or another option also would be to kind of just make the rest of the elements heavier to more match the big room style feel. Either way, I think that a lot of the synths and sounds are very preset-y sounding. I really like the melody. The key is great. The progression's great. But it kind of sounds like a lot of this. You got a sample pack or preset pack or both, and use those elements. So make them your own. You want to add some effects and processing and layering and stuff like that to make the sounds sound more unique. And again, for example, that pre-drop fill, that sounds, like it's out of a sample pack. That's not a bad thing. Sample packs are great, but you want to make the elements sound like they fit naturally together, and they're all from, like, similar with the last song, they're all from the same room and the same world. So that can be just a matter of processing it so that they sound, it doesn't sound jarring. Like, it kind of, when that came in, it sounded like, oh, where did this come from? So maybe lowering it in the mix, making it have a little bit more reverb to match the rest of the track, whatever it might be. That would be my suggestion, just to make sure all the elements are cohesive. But yeah, nice work. I enjoyed it, and definitely could hear that, lounging by a pool somewhere and partying in the summer. Cool. Raw Rocket ID. Let's check it out. All right. Yeah, very cool. Obviously it's only a minute 20. It's clearly a work in process. To me it sounds like you threw OTT on every single element here, which can be tempting. But that kind of makes it so that there's no dynamics, and that every sound sounds like it's processed exactly the same. It's like all flat. And so while you want to have your sounds be compressed and huge, and it actually kind of does the opposite when you put it on too heavy on the OTT on everything. So let your track breathe a little bit more. You want to, it just kind of sounds like somebody squished everything down. So add some variation, some more saturation, put things in different places with panning. Work on the build. When it first comes in, I thought in the drop, I thought it was cool that you didn't have any drums for that first bit, but I was kind of like, all right, are they coming? It felt a little bit long. Maybe that's the kind of thing that you want to do in like the second drop. The first drop, have it be more, all right, the drum comes in on the first beat or shortly after, and then the second one, it's like, oh, we changed it up, so that would be cool. Also, I would filter, do a little bit of high pass for that part, because when you come in with a fully with the sound as it is in the regular part of the drop, it kind of just sounds like, oh, they forgot to put in drums. But if you filter out, it's like, oh, this is something like, this is on purpose, you know. It's like really, you know, there's like that change. But yeah, definitely mixing needs work, but good work. The dubsteppy rhythm kind of sound really cool. So yeah, work on that. Whoever sent me this one, Ghost Boys, you didn't give me the private link, so I can't access the track, unfortunately. Okay. Dark Fighter by Jagadesh Krishna. Sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly.
I said I do when I get my gift back. Guess what? Can I control it? I could have killed you. What's up? Yeah.
Wow. All right. There is a lot going on in that one. The drops are heavy, you know, that rhythm sound, bro steppy rhythm, whatever you want to call it. So it sounds, you know, I love that cinematic orchestral feel. I love to do that in my tracks as well. To me, it sounds like you kind of took a ton of different samples or sounds from different places and put them all together. And, you know, honestly, it's just, there's a lot of mud going on in terms of, you know, you've just got a lot of elements all playing at the same time, and they all kind of overlap and just create a lot of muddy issues. The other thing is there's definitely some key problems here. There are a lot of elements that are not in the correct key. That is probably from taking a bunch of different things from different places and trying to get them all to work together. Unfortunately, they won't, because they're all in different progressions, different melodies, different keys, and yeah, you definitely want to work on that. You know, less is more a lot of the time, and you know, you really, if you're trying to create this huge build up orchestral movie type of thing, your elements, you know, yes, you want to layer a bunch of stuff, but first they need to work really well together, and secondly, you have to process them in a way so that they're not just sitting on top of each other creating this big muddy mess. So you know, great start. Definitely get back to work on this and try to simplify a little bit, and you know, make sure that you really understand what key your song is in, and none of the elements can be outside of that key. All right. Elementary. Oh, that's a cool name. I figured it out, I think, unless I'm totally wrong. But let's listen to Wasted. All right, nice work. It's the progression's cool. The overall idea is really cool. I think the biggest area you need work again is mixing. I say this a lot, but it's just the case. I mean, mixing is hard. It's a lot for somebody who's musical and a producer. And I'm the same way. It took me a really long time to get decent at mixing, and there's always room for improvement. For me and for most producers, it's a lot easier to come up with the progression, to create the melodies, to build the song out than it is to get it sounding the way that you really want it to, as far as sounding crisp and clean and punchy and everything, that you want to sound in a track. That being said, there's some definite muddiness issues in there. I think I would focus on just getting everything to sit well with each other, EQing everything. If you aren't already, maybe you are, but there needs to be an EQ on like every track, and everything needs to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure it all sits together and nothing is clashing with each other. Not melodically, everything's good melodically, but also I feel like your sub is like an octave too low. It can be tempting because you want to get this like deep bassy sound, but I feel like if it was an octave higher, it would be better. And you just make it an octave higher and put a multi-band compressor on it, or just a compressor, and just, I think that'll feel better. I think it's too low to feel it. I think that some detail work, what I often do is, I'll mute channels on sounds when I don't want anything to come through, or I'll flatten everything when I'm getting ready to mix, and then I'm working with audio now instead of MIDI, and I'm deleting parts where I don't want audio to come through. And for example, in the drops, that lead that you have, there's kind of a call and response in your melody. It goes da 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 da, and then something else responds to it, and I think that lead kind of continues on into the response part. I would cut it out, like make it go to 0. And in dubstep, that's like, going from that call and response and making sounds talk to each other and having these very clear segments is a key part of it. So I would make sure that, you know, only sounds that are integral to the part that you're playing are playing through. Otherwise, cut them out. So I hope that makes sense, but that's what I was hearing. All right, good work though. Thank you. All right, we got Bazek. Not really sure. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. Feature and AJ Jordan on vocals. Honest. Let's check it out. I like the artwork. That's really cool. And yeah, really awesome. Nice. Yeah, I love that. That's really awesome. Really, I mean, just great progression, great vocal, really awesome. Sounds like I want to go hang out at the pool, have a drink, and just jam out to this one. There are mixing issues here, and I think that's the only thing really. Some of the elements are not at volume, like you need to adjust the volumes on some of them. I think some things are a bit louder than they should be. I think the vocal is much quieter than it should be, and yeah, it can totally be a challenge to get the vocal to sit well without sounding like it's just on top of the song. It might help if you've heard of the plugin Track Spacer or something like that. That can help to, rather than using sidechain compression, it just sidechains essentially the volume. So putting that on some of your tracks or groups or buses, and sidechaining it with the vocal can help to just reduce the amplitude of the frequencies that the vocal is covering. Rather than reducing the entire sound of that track, it'll just cut out where the vocal is trying to come in. So if that makes sense. So it kind of just like slots in better, like a puzzle piece, rather than making the entire instrumental go down. I think that I would try something like that. But yeah, really volume and just maybe add some reverb on some of those like one shots, kind of like orchestral, brassy sounding one shots. But yeah, really don't have any comments in terms of the structure or the composition. The length is perfect for streaming. The vocal just, yeah, I would make it louder, and also maybe some more reverb or something. Like, it kind of sounds dry. But yeah, I basically, I would just say fine tooth comb with the mixing on this, and get it mastered nicely. If you can, get somebody professional to do it, or to do it yourself, whatever it might be. WA also offers mastering and mixing services, actually, if you need anything. But yeah, awesome job. Really like this one. So guys, sorry, but that's all the time we have for today. It's been a little bit over an hour. Glad we ended on a high note there. Everything you guys submitted is so good. I gotta say, even better than last week. So I'm sorry. I know I could not get through anywhere close to all of them, but I hope that you guys can submit again next week. I'll do my best to get to whoever I can that I didn't get to this week, and I'm gonna be back every week. So. We will continue doing this. I guess that's all, and looking forward, to talking with you all in the Discord, and keep commenting. I'll try and respond to whatever I can. If you have any questions, let's keep chatting. But great work, everybody. I really enjoyed this.